I hit the button. I'm like, I was no longer focused on the money. I never felt like this. Like it just, yeah.
From DMX's early exposure to drugs as a teenager, to Eminem's battle that nearly cost him his life, to Bushwick Bill's drug-fueled breakdowns, in this video, we're looking at iconic rappers who became drug addicts. Some survived, others weren't so lucky. DMX. Let's start with a name that pretty much everyone in the hip-hop community knows and loves. A name that, when you hear it, you immediately think of raw, unfiltered, passionate energy. I'm talking about none other than Earl Simmons, better known to the world as DMX, or Darkman X. Now, if you were listening to hip-hop in the late 1990s and early 2000s, you already know exactly what DMX meant to this culture. This man wasn't just a rapper, he was a force of nature. He was an absolute phenomenon. When he burst onto the scene, he brought an intensity, an authenticity, and an emotional depth that was unlike anything the mainstream had really seen before. But here's the thing about DMX that made him so incredibly relatable to so many people. He never hid his pain. He never pretended like everything was perfect. In his music, in his interviews, in everything he did, you could hear and see and feel the struggle that this man was going through. And a huge part of that struggle was his battle with drug addiction. In his words,
I hit the button. I'm like, I was no longer focused on the money. I never felt like this. Like it just, yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize is just how early DMX's addiction began. We're not talking about someone who got famous and then fell into drugs because of the pressures of the industry. No, this goes back much, much further than that. DMX's addiction actually started when he was just 14 years old, when he unknowingly smoked a marijuana blunt that had been laced with crack cocaine. Think about that for a second. 14 years old, still a child, and someone gave him a blunt that was laced with one of the most addictive substances known to man without even telling him what was in it. That moment, that single incident, would set the trajectory for so much of what DMX would struggle with for the rest of his life. From that point forward, he battled cocaine addiction in various forms for decades. And when I say battled, I mean he truly fought against it. This wasn't someone who just gave up and let the drugs consume him without a fight. DMX went to rehab multiple times throughout his life. He tried to get clean over and over again. He was open about his struggles in interviews, talking about how hard it was, how the addiction never really went away, how it was something he had to fight against every single day. But the addiction also led to some very dark places. It led to multiple arrests over the years. It led to legal troubles that plagued him throughout his career. It led to periods where he disappeared from the music scene entirely because he was dealing with his demons behind closed doors. And tragically, heartbreakingly, it ultimately led to his death in April of 2021, when DMX passed away from a cocaine-induced heart attack. Now, DMX wasn't the only hip-hop legend whose life was consumed by addiction during that era. Let's travel back to the early and mid-1990s and talk about another iconic figure whose struggles were just as public and just as devastating: T.I. The Grammy winner's journey with addiction began after undergoing extensive dental surgery, which led to a dependency on OxyContin and hydrocodone. In a 2012 interview with Vibe magazine, T.I. revealed that he was prescribed multiple medications for pain, but soon found himself taking the pills even after his pain had subsided. "I had like 5-6 prescriptions, so I had like 80 pills. Everybody else might have a drink or smoke a blunt. I took a pain pill," he said. T.I.'s addiction escalated as he started using the pills to cope with his demanding schedule, often working 18, 20-hour days. He was popping pills to stay up, pills to come down, and pills to just get through the day. In another interview, he admitted selling crack, not just consuming it.
Very candid, I sold crack. You're very open about those experiences.
Sure.
And it's
I did sell crack. And,
okay.
You know, I did.
Why do you tell people that?
Well, I mean, it's because it's my testimony.
The rapper's addiction reached a critical point when he realized he was losing himself in the process. T.I. knew he needed help and sought support from his family, particularly his children. T.I. checked himself into rehab to address his addiction and has since spoken publicly about his journey towards recovery. He credits his family, therapy, and self-reflection for helping him overcome his addiction. "I had to learn how to deal with my emotions, my stress, and my anxiety without relying on pills," he said. Through his music and public appearances, T.I. continues to inspire others to seek help and work towards recovery. His journey serves as a testament to the power of resilience and determination. In his song, The Road to Recovery, T.I. raps about his struggles and his path to recovery, saying, "I'm not where I want to be, but I'm getting there, one day at a time." While T.I. has stayed away from drugs for a long time, using his experiences for fueling his creativity, our next rapper is still struggling to this day: Lil Wayne. The Miami-born rapper's journey with substance abuse began in his teenage years when he was prescribed codeine cough syrup to treat a seizure disorder. Over time, Lil Wayne became increasingly dependent on the medication, and his addiction soon spiraled out of control. He began to rely on codeine and other substances to cope with the pressures of fame, as well as personal and professional stress. In 2013, Lil Wayne suffered a major health scare when he had a seizure on stage during a performance in Canada. The incident was a wake-up call for the rapper, who realized that his addiction was taking a serious toll on his health. Lil Wayne checked himself into rehab in 2013 and has since spoken publicly about his struggles with addiction. He has undergone multiple rounds of treatment and has been working to rebuild his life and career.
And so, the lack of drinking the codeine the way I did drink it, and it was kind of like a reaction of you stopping the drug.
Do you do that anymore at all?
No, I can't.
And what made you stop?
The doctor did.
Despite his progress, Lil Wayne has faced setbacks. In 2019, he underwent a major surgery to remove a seizure-causing brain tumor, which led to a brief relapse. However, the rapper has since returned to music and has been using his platform to raise awareness about addiction and mental health. Lil Wayne's struggles with addiction have had a significant impact on his life and career. He has missed performances, faced legal issues, and has been open about the strain his addiction put on his relationships. However, the rapper has also used his experiences to fuel his music and has released several critically acclaimed albums in recent years. He has collaborated with artists such as Drake, Nicki Minaj, and Kendrick Lamar, and has won numerous awards for his work. Lil Wayne's journey with addiction is a testament to the complexities of substance abuse and the importance of seeking help. The rapper has shown that recovery is possible, even in the face of adversity, and has inspired many with his resilience and determination. While Lil Wayne has managed to stay alive and maintain his fame over the years, the same cannot be said about the next rapper on our list, whose life ended in tragedy. Pimp C. We have to talk about another legendary figure from the southern rap scene who was also taken too soon by the very substances that had become part of the culture he helped create. I'm talking about Chad Lamont Butler, better known as Pimp C, one half of the iconic duo UGK, Underground Kings. Now, if you know anything about southern hip-hop, you know that UGK is royalty. Alongside his partner Bun B, Pimp C created some of the most influential music to ever come out of the South. Their sound was distinctly Texas, distinctly southern, and distinctly their own. They brought a level of authenticity and street credibility that resonated with fans across the region and eventually across the entire country. When people talk about the pioneers of southern rap, UGK is always right there at the top of the list. Pimp C himself was an incredible talent, not just as a rapper, but as a producer as well. He crafted beats that perfectly complemented his and Bun B's flows, creating a sonic signature that was immediately recognizable. His voice, his delivery, his swagger, everything about Pimp C screamed authenticity. He was unapologetically himself, and fans loved him for it. Like many others from the Houston scene, Pimp C's story is intertwined with the use of lean. In his music, Pimp C made numerous references to promethazine and codeine syrup, and his use of these substances was well documented. It was part of the culture, part of the lifestyle, and part of what made the music feel so authentic to the streets it was representing. Unfortunately, that authenticity came with very real, very dangerous consequences. On December 4th, 2007, Pimp C was found dead in a Los Angeles hotel room. He was 33 years old. The official cause of death was determined to be an accidental overdose of promethazine and codeine, the very substances he had referenced so many times in his music. Complicating matters was the fact that Pimp C also suffered from sleep apnea, a condition in which breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep. The combination of the respiratory depressing effects of the codeine and his pre-existing sleep apnea proved to be fatal. Pimp C wasn't the only member of the Houston hip-hop scene battling demons. Another Ghetto Boys member had his own harrowing encounter with substance abuse that nearly cost him his life. Bow Wow. According to Bow Wow, his addiction began around 2007 while recording his collaborative album, Face Off, with Omarion. He started drinking lean to cope with the pressures of fame and the music industry. What started as a recreational habit soon spiraled out of control, with Bow Wow admitting to drinking lean up to 7 times a day while touring with Chris Brown. In his own words,
"When did you first think about or find out about cough syrup as a way of escaping?"
Yeah, it really wasn't much of escaping. It was that it was just around. You know, it was one of those things that all my boys was doing it, and you know, it was kind of like start off like, well, let me take some of yours, and then next thing you know, a week later, it's Make me my own.
The consequences of Bow Wow's addiction were severe. He collapsed on stage in Cincinnati and was hospitalized, experiencing intense withdrawals that forced him to miss tour dates. He was also high on lean during public appearances, including an infamous outburst on BET's Road to Platinum series. In hindsight, Bow Wow realizes that lean had taken a toll on his mental and physical health. He was irritable, struggled with stomach issues, and even felt like he was losing his edge on stage. His addiction had become a crutch, and he was losing himself in the process. A near-death experience served as a wake-up call for Bow Wow. He realized that he needed to get help and get out of the game before it was too late. He has since been vocal about his recovery journey, using his platform to raise awareness about substance abuse and urge fans, especially youth, to stay away from drugs. Interestingly, Bow Wow's mentor, Jermaine Dupri, claimed he was unaware of Bow Wow's addiction, stating he's never seen Bow Wow do drugs around him. This revelation highlights the insidious nature of addiction, which can often be hidden from even those closest to the individual. Thankfully, Bow Wow was able to overcome his addiction, just like the next rapper on our list, Flavor Flav. Now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about someone whose story, thankfully, has a different trajectory than some of the others we've discussed. I'm talking about William Jonathan Drayton Jr., better known to the world as Flavor Flav, the legendary hype man for the groundbreaking group Public Enemy. If you know anything about the history of hip-hop, you know that Public Enemy is one of the most important groups to ever pick up a microphone. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, they brought a level of political consciousness and social commentary to hip-hop that was revolutionary, with Chuck D delivering powerful, thought-provoking lyrics about racism, inequality, and the struggles of Black America. Public Enemy became the voice of a generation that was demanding to be heard. And right there, alongside Chuck D, was Flavor Flav, bringing an energy and a charisma that was absolutely essential to the group's dynamic. With his oversized clock necklaces, his distinctive voice, and his ability to hype up any crowd, Flavor Flav became one of the most recognizable figures in all of hip-hop. He was the perfect counterbalance to Chuck D's intensity, injecting humor and excitement into their performances while never detracting from the message. But behind the outrageous persona and the infectious energy, Flavor Flav was fighting a battle that few people knew about at the time. In the early 1990s, Flavor Flav developed a serious addiction to crack cocaine, reportedly spending between $2,400 and $2,600 a day on drugs for 6 years straight. This wasn't casual drug use or experimentation. This was a full-blown addiction to one of the most destructive substances to ever hit American streets. Crack cocaine devastated communities across the country during this era, and Flavor Flav was not immune to its grip. His addiction led to arrests and legal troubles that threatened to derail everything he had built with Public Enemy. But here's where Flavor Flav's story diverges from some of the others. Instead of succumbing to his addiction, Flavor Flav made the decision to seek help. His family staged an intervention, which eventually led him to check himself into the Betty Ford Center. Through hard work and dedication, he was able to achieve sobriety. He fought back against the demons that had taken hold of his life, and he won. Flavor Flav isn't the only OG who managed to fight his way back from the depths of addiction. Another legend from the South found redemption after years of struggle: Scarface. For this next story, we're going to talk about another legend from the South who has been incredibly open and honest about his personal battles with addiction and mental health. I'm talking about Brad Terrence Jordan, better known as Scarface, the legendary rapper from the Ghetto Boys. Now, if you want to talk about pioneers of Southern hip-hop, you absolutely have to talk about the Ghetto Boys and Scarface in particular. Coming out of Houston in the late 1980s, the Ghetto Boys pushed boundaries in ways that most other groups wouldn't even consider. They tackled subjects that were considered taboo, diving into the darker aspects of the human psyche and creating what would come to be known as horrorcore, a subgenre of hip-hop that explored themes of violence, mental illness, and the macabre. Scarface was the heart and soul of that group. His lyrical ability was unmatched, his storytelling was vivid and compelling, and his willingness to explore his own demons in his music set him apart from virtually everyone else in the game. When Scarface rapped, you could feel the pain and the struggle behind every word. This wasn't someone putting on an act or playing a character. This was someone bearing his soul for the world to hear. And part of what made Scarface's music so powerful was that he was drawing from very real experiences. Throughout his career, particularly particularly in the 1990s, Scarface has openly discussed his battles with depression, cocaine addiction, and alcohol abuse. These weren't just topics for his lyrics, they were realities he was living every single day. Depression, in particular, was something that Scarface talked about long before it was considered acceptable for rappers to discuss mental health openly. In an era when showing any kind of vulnerability was seen as weakness, Scarface was out there telling the world that he struggled with his mental health, that there were days when he didn't want to get out of bed, that the darkness sometimes felt overwhelming. That kind of honesty was revolutionary for its time. But like Flavor Flav, Scarface's story has a more hopeful ending than some of the others we've discussed. Recognizing that he needed help, Scarface sought treatment for his addiction and his mental health issues. He committed to the process of recovery, and he was able to achieve long-term sobriety. It wasn't easy, recovery never is, but he put in the work and came out on the other side. While Southern legends like Scarface were battling their demons, another Midwest pioneer was fighting his own quiet battle that would eventually contribute to his untimely death. MC Breed. Now let's talk about a rapper who helped put the Midwest on the hip-hop map, but whose struggles with addiction often flew under the radar. I'm talking about Eric Breed, better known as MC Breed, one of the first nationally successful rappers to come out of the Detroit hip-hop scene. MC Breed burst onto the scene in 1991 with his hit single, Ain't No Future in Yo Frontin', which peaked at number 66 on the Billboard Hot 100 and announced to the world that the Midwest had serious talent to offer. Coming out of Flint, Michigan, a city known for its tough blue-collar environment, MC Breed brought an authenticity and rawness to his music that resonated with fans across the country. Throughout his career, MC Breed released 13 albums and collaborated with some of the biggest names in hip-hop, including Tupac Shakur on the memorable track Gotta Get Mine. He moved fluidly between different regional sounds, at times aligning himself with the West Coast G-Funk sound and later connecting with the Southern rap scene. His versatility and consistent output earned him respect throughout the industry, but behind the music, MC Breed was dealing with personal demons that would eventually catch up with him. According to reports and hip-hop histories, MC Breed struggled with substance abuse issues throughout his life. While the specifics of his addiction were kept relatively private compared to some of the other artists we've discussed, the consequences became tragically apparent in his final years. In September 2008, MC Breed collapsed during a game of pickup basketball in Atlanta when his kidneys failed. He was hospitalized and placed on life support, with doctors reporting that he had lost 70% of his kidney function. A benefit concert was being planned to help raise money for his medical bills and potentially find a kidney donor. After spending 2 days on life support, MC Breed appeared to be recovering. He was released from the hospital and seemed to be on the mend. But just 2 months later, tragedy struck. On November 22, 2008, MC Breed was found dead at a friend's house in Ypsilanti, Michigan. He was just 37 years old. While MC Breed was fighting his battles in the Midwest on the East Coast, one of the greatest rappers of all time was dealing with his own devastating addiction, Eminem. Eminem's rise to superstardom in the late 1990s and early 2000s is the stuff of legend. Coming out of Detroit's underground battle rap scene, he caught the attention of Dr. Dre and went on to become one of the best-selling music artists of all time. His technical skill, his controversial lyrics, and his ability to tell deeply personal stories through his music made him a cultural phenomenon. Albums like the Slim Shady LP, the Marshall Mathers LP, and the Eminem Show dominated the charts and earned him critical acclaim. But as his fame grew, so did his reliance on substances to cope with the pressures of stardom. Eminem's addiction issues began in the early 2000s as he started relying on prescription medications like Vicodin, Valium, and Ambien to deal with anxiety and insomnia. What started as an attempt to manage the chaos of superstardom quickly spiraled into a full-blown addiction. At the height of his addiction, Eminem was consuming staggering amounts of pills. He is admitted to taking up to 60 Valium and 30 Vicodin pills a day, mixing substances in ways that could have easily killed him. His weight ballooned to 230 pounds, and his creative output suffered. The death of his close friend Proof in 2006 sent him spiraling even deeper into addiction. In 2007, Eminem suffered a near-fatal methadone overdose. His doctor told him that the amount of methadone he had taken was equivalent to shooting up 4 bags of heroin. Had he arrived at the hospital just 2 hours later, he would have died. His organs, liver, kidneys, everything were shutting down. Eminem's story of recovery is inspiring, but his generation isn't the only one dealing with these issues. Let's look at a more recent example of an artist who carried on the legacy of battling addiction, Schoolboy Q. For our final story, we're going to talk about a West Coast rapper who came up in the 2010s, but whose struggles with addiction connect him directly to the OG pioneers we've been discussing. I'm talking about Quincy Matthew Hanley, better known as Schoolboy Q. Schoolboy Q emerged from the Carson-based label Top Dog Entertainment, the same label that gave us Kendrick Lamar, and quickly established himself as one of the most compelling voices in West Coast hip-hop. His major label debut, Oxymoron, released in 2014, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 and announced his arrival as a major force in the industry. But the title of that album wasn't chosen randomly. Before turning to music, Schoolboy Q became a drug dealer, selling large quantities of OxyContin. For 3 years, he and a friend ran a drug ring, moving pills from Los Angeles to Seattle. When their connection went to jail, Q took over the business, but he wasn't just selling, he was using too. According to Schoolboy Q himself, while recording material for Oxymoron, he was simultaneously selling and abusing drugs. I was addicted to pills, and I was selling them at the same time. I never was addicted to OxyContin, but Percocet, Xannies, Lean, and stuff like that. I was addicted to it. The irony of the title Oxymoron wasn't lost on him. He was living a contradiction, rapping about the dangers of drugs while being consumed by them. In interviews, Q has been brutally honest about how his addiction started. All it took was one day me saying, "I need to go to sleep," and a homie gave me my first pill. I fell in love. It was over from there. I was addicted for like 2 years, and I would never tell nobody. None of my homies. I wouldn't tell my girl. My mother, like nobody knew. TDE didn't know. The only one that knew was Ab-Soul. His addiction affected his relationship with his daughter, Joy. During that period, Q admits to being a deadbeat father, too caught up in his own demons to be present for her. But becoming a father also gave him the motivation to change. As his career took off and he gained more financial stability, he committed to leaving his drug dealing and drug using days behind him. Today, Schoolboy Q has publicly stated that he no longer uses drugs, showing that recovery is possible and emphasizing the importance of seeking help when needed. His story serves as a bridge between the OG pioneers and today's generation, proving that addiction doesn't discriminate based on era, coast, or level of success. Thanks for watching.